Hey guys, welcome back to the Fulco. The day after our very disappointing Carabao Cup semi-final exit to Liverpool up at Anfield. Obviously, a very, very disappointing game and performance. I think there are lots of things that fans could forgive. There are lots of things that fans could possibly get on board with. But one of the things that we can't is obviously getting so close to a cup final and then going out with a whimper rather than really having a go. I think a quick look through the course of the game, we can pick out a few themes that I think are key and obviously are things that would need to be rectified and looked at before we go and play Villa, because otherwise our season obviously threatens to unravel rather quickly if we go out of both cup competitions in short order. It's going to change massively the psychology of the half of the fan base that maybe is still on board and still kind of backing the manager and backing the team. Looking at last night's game, I think it's interesting, having heard what Ange said after the game, that he did not tell his team to play the way his team played. So that's one of those where the players have gone out and they've either taken it on themselves to do something slightly different. I would be surprised if that's the case, because everything that we've heard and a lot of what we've seen have shown that the players are totally behind this manager. So it doesn't feel like it's the kind of thing that the players took it on themselves to take it out of the manager and the coaching staff's hands and do their own thing. But I think it speaks to something else, which is a very common Tottenham Hotspur thing, which is that we lack the mentality that's required to get over the line in games like this and to play in those big games. And that's that the players went out there and they were in their shells. They were nervous. They lacked a bit of bravery and a bit of courage and a bit of determination. And I think that one of the things that maybe cost us a little bit is that we did do quite well against Brentford, sitting in and being a bit more conservative in our start positions when we were pressing or not pressing at all. And against this Liverpool side, something different would have been required. There's no way that you go to Anfield against the quality of side that Liverpool have and you could sit in and try and, Mourinho ball through to maybe nicking a 1-0. I just think they're too good, and I think our playing staff aren't quite there yet to be able to do that kind of thing. So we would have needed to do something a bit different. I think a lot of fans would have been happy to see a hybrid of, if we are going to sit a bit deeper, but try and be aggressive, try and press in the midfield, really try and press their forward players, and then try and hit them on the break or try and generate something from a counter or from a set piece. We didn't really manage to do any of that. The game started with a couple of warnings. Liverpool were absolutely looking for that late running midfielder. And, by the end of the game, they didn't even need to commit a late running midfielder. They just had midfielders pressed really high up into the front line. But they were looking for it early on and trying to drag us about, and they were very successful with it. Szoboszlai had a goal disallowed, and rightly so. So well done, and credit to the defence and to Danso in particular for coming into a brand new team and a brand new defence and holding the line where it needed to be. He did go a fraction early, but he just about managed to keep Szoboszlai offside. And so rightly so. That is good defending, contrary to what some people think. Catching someone offside, even if they go through and score, is good defending. So that was a small note of positive. And I felt that Danso did okay during the game. I thought he came in, and given the circumstances and him being thrown in at the deep end, I think he handled himself pretty well throughout. But the warning was there for this Tottenham team. The other slightly concerning thing about, when you're going to Anfield and trying to put on a performance is that Kinski looked a bit nervous as well. Totally understandable. We understand our injury situation. We understand how many players are missing. We understand the youth and the lack of experience in the players that we do have available to us, and the fact that this is only Kinski's first month at the football club. He's had very limited minutes and he's 21 years old. But I would still be a little bit disappointed. There were moments where, and it spoke to being a bit passive defensively by the entire team, but there was a couple of moments of like balls hooked into the air in the box that nobody really took charge of. And I would have liked to seen that, and Kinski didn't help with that either. He had that moment where, you know, the ball was hoofed up in the air and he's really not under a great deal of pressure. He's just got Ben Davies in front of him and one Liverpool player, and you know, he makes a bit of a mess of it. Cracks Ben Davies on the head. Made a bit of a mess of that. He had another punch which looked, you know, ropey, and I think went out for a corner, and that obviously builds the crowd up. The crowd were quite lethargic and quite quiet because Liverpool didn't create huge amounts. We were okay in the game, despite these things, but these little moments do help the crowd, and again, I think that was a bit of the theme of the game, is we initially helped Liverpool to get over the line, and then what happened after that, the game was already gone and already beyond us. So super disappointing from that perspective. And then finally on Kinski, you know, just these balls out into the midfielders, he's got to do better. We've seen it with Vicario, but they've got to do better. If this is something we're going to do, and we're going to play these high-risk triangles where the keeper plays into a midfielder who's marked and they're going to try and bounce it off right or left, we are going to have to get better at execution and identifying the moment. Now, we've seen that Kinski's been willing to go longer, and that's absolutely fine. It didn't stick in this game, and Liverpool's a really hard team to do that against when you've only really got Richarlison and maybe Decky to hit. But there was another moment where Kinski just rolled the ball past the midfielder into midfield, and again, it invites Liverpool on. After that, we've got the Gakpo goal. It's us shooting ourselves in the foot, us doing what we did. Not only did we not lay a glove on Liverpool in terms of defensively in the midfield, of being able to get close to them, we were always disorganised and they moved us around nicely. But, you know, you've got to be better in possession of the ball. We finally managed to secure it with Decky. He rolls it to Biss, and Biss does this, right? He gives the ball away in dangerous areas, and that is the nature of probably what he's being asked to do, but he's better than this particular incident. It was a really sloppy ball. You could see the window closing in front of him. He had a player behind, he had a player in front that were pressing him. You could see that gap was closing, and he's just not executed. But I will defend him to a certain extent. I want to know what on earth Pap Sarr is thinking at that point. And it kind of speaks to, maybe is there a difference between what the manager is asking players to do and their understanding then of it and their execution of it? Because in that moment, we've actually gotten out. We can get out. And when Biss gets that ball and that pocket starts closing, the Liverpool players start closing, we're drawing two players in, that generates a huge amount of space for us on the other side. But Pap Sarr steps on the accelerator, he starts moving forward. My understanding is, like, what are you thinking that Bissouma's going to do? He cannot play that ball through the Liverpool player to you. So why would you start accelerating up into space? I just wonder whether it's an understanding of Postecoglou trying to get his midfielders to run on and create overloads and pin or force back defenders to create more space. But in that moment in time, Son goes on the left, Sarr goes in that channel, and it just, for me, it's not the right moment. You secure the football first and then you move for your midfielders. Son, if Son goes, fine, he's going to start pulling the fullback back into position to create more space. No problem with that, but that ball has got to be played with quality, secured in the midfield so that we can settle down and we can play. And we had a really good opportunity there because there was a nice big hole in that midfield with the two players closing in on Bissouma. We still had loads of work to do after that, but the fact that we couldn't execute that moment after being under that much pressure was symptomatic of what was wrong with us. We weren't great defensively, and we offered nothing in terms of holding possession of the ball and trying to manage Liverpool's onslaught by taking the ball away and doing something with it ourselves and probing and pushing them back. So yeah, they go on. We lose possession, ball out to Salah. Disappointing that ball's flipped all the way across that line. There was a good deep lying run, as I mentioned earlier, from I think Curtis Jones, which again kind of creates a bit of confusion in between Danso and Gray. Danso maybe could have been a bit more aggressive. I think he kind of pushes out. I think Davies' man is Nunez. I think Danso pushes out to try and stop the little overhead flick, tries to put his body there, whereas maybe he could have attacked the ball. Anyway, it's a small detail. It finds its way across to Gakpo, and he lashes it and gets loads of top spin on it. And I think that was a difficult one for Kinski. I'm not putting the blame at his door. Goalkeeping coaches, come at me. Let me know what you think. But yeah, all of a sudden, without having to earn it, Liverpool are back in the game. It's effectively back to 0-0, and it's game on. Their tails are up. They're at home. They're rested. They've got a better team. Everything is now against us, but it's of our own doing, which is just so frustrating. And then we go beyond that. Like, we continue with passive defending. There was loads of moments where a ball kind of broke in midfield and everybody paused. And it's just really, really frustrating. And I know how little energy our players have got and how much running they've done. But you just feel in a cup semi-final, empty the tank. Who cares about, Friday morning? Empty the tank now. And if that affects us for the Villa game, who cares? This is a semi-final. Let's get through this game and then let's worry about Villa. And there were too many moments where I felt we were on our heels. We weren't, there wasn't that aggressive going to win the ball. We didn't impose ourselves, and that continued throughout. And then we compound things by the second goal in the second half, where again Liverpool have put a press on, but it's not a crazy press. Davis, sadly, he's got a pass that is not the most difficult pass in the world. He's trying to bend it out to probably Son. And he gets it all wrong. He just doesn't get the ball up and over with any quality. There was a harder pass on. There was a ball along the floor, I think, to Spence, but it was a much more difficult ball for me. I think he went for the right option, which was to try and lift it over the press and over the players. He just executes it poorly, and it's really hard to critique somebody who's been playing so well. But Jed Spence doesn't defend the next phase properly. Because the ball kind of pops up in the air, it's dropping to Salah, and there's plenty of time. So there's lots of time for Spence to make a good decision and get in a good position. He decides to defend on the high side rather than on the goal side, and that's a mistake. Salah, with his quality, his first touch, he just brings it over his shoulder and pops it into wide open space. So he's then running. So then that causes Jed to be on scramble defence to try and get back round. It opens up a huge gap, and it's a really easy ball. Salah is not gonna get this ball wrong, playing the ball forward to Nunez, and the quality of the players they've got, the pace, the dynamism. Nunez gets there. I think Kinski gets a bit of it, but almost like how we defended passively, and we were passive throughout the game. We didn't even appeal and go mad about the touch that Kinski got. It was almost like, he caught Nunez, which he obviously does afterwards, and we just kind of accepted our fate. So again, it was really, really disappointing, but avoidable. So again, you've just now handed advantage to Liverpool, and they still haven't had to do anything particularly because you've done it to yourself, which is hugely frustrating when you're performing the way we were. And then, with the initiative handed over to Liverpool, you felt it was only ever going to go one way. But at 2-1, the score with the 1-0 from the first leg at 2-1, if Tottenham get a goal, game on. We're back in it. There's no away goal rule. We're back in it. We're back in the game. We never looked likely. We didn't really create anything. They had more chances. I think there was a good chance Gakpo shot. I think Kinski, credit to him, gets a bit of it. And hits the post, We had one moment where we should credit Jed Spence. He kind of went for it on his own. He got the ball flipped into the right-hand channel, went up, turned, and then had a lash. I mean, it was somebody doing something, it wasn't effective, but it was the kind of thing that you wish more players had a bit more of that energy and a bit more of a go, a bit more of a go. And then like this continuous situation of our midfield just not being there, not being in the channels, not blocking the half spaces, not blocking the passing lanes. I think Gravenberch then gets a shot off, hits the left-hand post, which is just, it was all over the place. It's the midfield is just not covering, and one nice ball from Szoboszlai. It's a first time really quick tap back to Gravenberch, who he'd got the ball from. So it's a 1-2 effectively. Opens up the space, and we're nowhere to be seen. Then we've got the Szoboszlai goal. This goal to me, as disappointing as the others were, this goal to me was just incredible. This is the kind of thing that I would be absolutely fuming about if I was a coach working with a team. Berieval's on the pitch by this point. He and Bentancur don't organise the defensive positioning, so it's one of those things where Berieval should have been cutting off the passing lane on his side, allowing Bentancur to come across. They don't do that. They don't communicate well enough. They've not managed to do that. They don't screen the pass into the front man. And you've got McAllister strolling into acres and acres of space. We've actually just lost the ball because we've been pushed off it by a physical challenge. The ball's come into McAllister. He's wandering through midfield, and then he has got no challenge, nobody screening his passes, and he's got the easiest pass in the world from a fantastic deep line run from Conor Bradley, who's come from miles away. But again, this kind of thing, it just can't be done. Berieval's got to cut off the left-hand side to allow Bentancur to come over, and Bentancur he's still working with two, because he's going to be watching McAllister and trying to screen his pass, but then as Bradley bombs up, he's going to provide the option to make sure that Bradley doesn't receive this easy ball on the other side of him. They don't do it. We're all over the place. Bradley with a really nice composed ball straight away as soon as he receives it on the other side of our midfield. He plays it into Szoboszlai, and he does what he does with quality, takes a touch, gets in there and puts it in the bottom corner, and that's high quality players. But again, that was an infuriating goal in terms of the allowance of that through our midfield. And yes, our players are tired, therefore they're mentally maybe not making the right decisions, and physically they can't get there, but still, this is such a disappointing goal to concede. And throughout our midfield looked confused, and they didn't look like they were affecting the game defensively or offensively. Tell came on, obviously, for Richie, and so another injury, and in typical Tottenham fashion, another injury, and Tell came on, and he actually, maybe was a bit of a bright spot for us in that game. We've said that Danso did quite well in his first game. Tell also looked like he comes on with a lot of confidence. He doesn't at the moment feel like it's on the arrogant side. He's not pouting or wondering about moaning at people, but he's 19 years old in his first appearance, and he's going out there and he's calling players in for the press, and he wants the ball. He had a couple of good moments. He won us a corner from securing the ball. He looks like he's got like one of those classic lash finishes, like he lashes the ball, but he does it with quality. A little bit Jermaine Defoe, but with a bit more explosive manner about him in terms of his finish. So I'll be excited to see him trying to take a few longer efforts, or further out in the penalty area. So he had one that was deflected over, and then he had a lovely moment, Tell, where he dropped really, really deep into the left hand half space, picked up possession, secured it, and then played a lovely curling ball into Sonny's path. And this was exactly the kind of move that I think we would have wanted to put down on Liverpool, is to free Sonny and let him do what he does best, 1v1, or put him in on the other side, which we only did once. And questions about our midfield and our fullbacks not being able to do that and to execute that themselves. Tell did, and Sonny had that one moment of quality. And again, everybody criticising Sonny. He was anonymous, of course he was. It's not his game to just run around and defend, and we didn't unlock him as much as he also at moments didn't come in and demand the ball and try and do something. But he has that moment of quality, and he stands up the centre half and beats him, and then he's super unlucky to come off the other side of the bar and not see that flash into the roof of the net. But